Hello and welcome back to On the Beaten Track. I'm your host, Rihanna. Thank you for everybody who watched our two-parter from the last 2 weeks about adoption. Our special guest, Maya, was very excited to go to school and brag about her appearance, even by voice, on the pod, so that was great. Two things today. One, I'm trying to make the episode shorter, so they have been between 25 to 30 minutes, so you can watch it as you're driving to work, drive home from work, or during your lunch hour if you want to. So it's a lot easier to consume than the hour and 45 minutes or even 45 minutes one. So I hope that helps my listeners. Then I have a very bad weird stuff. So for the next couple of episodes, I won't be wearing much more than just lippy and eyes, just to preserve my skin. So if I look a bit tired and different, this is why. But we're here for the story and not for Rihanna's face only. Cool. Thank you so much for your attention. What does he say? Thank you so much for your attention to this matter. You know. A reminder, please subscribe on the YouTube channel and comment on the videos. It really helps my channel and helps me keep this going and shows the platform engagement on the channel and the videos. Today's topic is part of a series of topics that I've put together. Let's talk about how I got here. When I was doing the setup for the podcast, I was writing quite a bit of scripts, and one of it was growing up colored in South Africa. I've always loved sharing, like I said, our stories. Sorry if you can hear Enzo banging. And that ended up being quite a long script. What I did was I really wanted to do an in-depth look at colored culture, where it comes from, all the veins that lead in from our past and how we connected, because I have experienced that quite a lot, especially when I travel. And I wanted to see how we got to be this community of diverse people, what it means from a colored culture perspective, and how we got to what the community looks like today. I had some chats with my folks. We spoke about their forced removals during the apartheid era as kids, and some insights into our family tree, which was at times funny and at times sad. And at the same time, I was reading this book, Colored, which says colored where classification becomes a culture, because it really was speaking to what I wanted to talk to. And this book just really opened my mind. It was really well done, and speaking about, the ties from the first to the now to the in-betweens, and talking about how that has shaped behaviors, shaped families, but never really giving an excuse for that behavior, but making that understanding bigger. Then the other thing was it speaks a lot about specific people, impactful people that seemed to have been forgotten with time, and that had me then going, oh, who is this person? Let me read up on them. Let me research them. And then I started learning about those people, and it was so fascinating. And things I had never learned as a kid in school, going through our education system in apartheid. It wasn't really going to be talking about all these types of things. Really just highlighted to me how devoid of understanding my history was, and I really just went full hog, full tilt, and started looking at that. When I was writing the long script, I was reading some of it to my husband. Then when I was finding out all these like very specific things and we were talking about it, he and I eventually had quite a very honest conversation about me tackling this. He was worried that I was putting myself out there and putting myself in the firing line for criticism, and that I would need to be careful about how I tackle it. It did scare the heck out of me, but I knew coming online and doing the things I wanted to do might draw some criticism. But I felt that I was learning so much that I didn't know. And if I didn't know, how did everybody else know? Unless you went looking for it like I did now. When I got into the working world, I understood how many of my colleagues didn't understand the colored experience or the colored culture. And I found myself enlightening them, explaining who I represent, who my friends represent, looking at people as a whole and really peeling back from the stereotypes, and how it's such a melting pot and how beautiful it was. But really when you understand it, okay? So that's really my context to why I wanted to do this. Then the whole open podcast thing happened. They said what they said. It was inappropriate. It was derogatory. But it then just reinforced why I was trying to do this, to enlighten and engage not only my people, colored people. I mean, all South Africans are my people, but, from a colored perspective, if I didn't know as a colored person, then maybe other colored people don't know. And then if colored people don't know, why would everybody else know? So it just reinforced that and emphasized why it was important for me to shine the light in this darkness of stereotypes and people's minimal exposure to each other still. I've approached this from a colored person's perspective, because that's the story I want to tell. So when I stretch back into history and I started to see the impact of certain people, once I had all these stories and side stories and reams of research, I thought about how to tackle this. So I could do this with person by person, then tying it all together to the consequence thereof, or events, or there was many ways to skin this cat, okay? What I settled on was doing it from a timeline perspective. So I'm going to do a timeline base through the centuries with impactful moments and impactful people, and then bringing it back to where I am today. And I do understand that my experience of as being a colored person is not every colored person's experience, because we are such a melting pot with social structure, language, and many other elements within the community itself, also creating like segments of it. On a basic level, when I think about how different we can be, I moved to the Western Cape from the Eastern Cape, and the people we are different. They're not different at their core. There's a through line that goes with all of us, but there is the nuanced difference between colored people from different provinces too. And if you live in South Africa and you move through South Africa, with how big it is, you can understand why that is. Let's take this journey today through time, which I hope will be informative and send you on your own information and knowledge hunt. It's done from a place of love and sharing knowledge, pronunciation today is fantastic. It might not be comprehensive, but I hope that the little that I've learned and I share with you, that you'll learn and share with someone else. And if there's anything that I've missed, or you feel like I should do a deeper dive on somebody or events, then please drop a comment and feel free to add to the conversation. My history knowledge of South Africa starts with a picture that's kind of burnt into my brain of Jan van Riebeeck standing on the shores of the Cape with these people with him in loincloths. You see where I'm going with this, like from our history books. Going on this search of knowledge and understanding of the colored region story, I really needed to look at the people that inhabited this land before 1652 when Jan came, and understand their diverse cultures, where they lived, how they lived, and what was there and what wasn't. Let's dive in. For clarity, when I say Southern Africa, I'm talking about the land south of the Zambezi, which is South Africa, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Namibia, Lesotho, and Eswatini. We're looking at that big area. Long before people came to the shores of the Cape, there were people here already. But who were they? The obvious, the original inhabitants were the San and the Khoikhoi, with the broader group now normally referred to as the Khoisan. The San, they were the Bushmen, they were the hunter-gatherers, deeply connected to the natural world, skilled in tracking and knowledge of plants. They didn't build stone structures or cities, but their knowledge was the invisible, so knowledge of seasonal migration routes, water sources, wild foods. It was just really vital for survival. The Khoi were the pastoralist. They were herding livestock and forming communities, social and political organization. They built social systems around livestock and wealth, and they knew how to manage waterholes in the driest part of the country. Together they represent humanity's oldest cultural roots going back 100,000 years. Let that sink in. Recently I was on Instagram and I saw this BBC iPlayer reel, and I haven't looked into it deeper, which I will, but it was presented by Ella Al-Shamahi, where she brings DNA science and global archaeology's stories together. And she asked this very interesting question. She wants you to tell her which of these first two or second two are the most genetically diverse from each other. So there's a Chinese person and a Swedish person, and then there's two Khoisan from the Kalahari Desert. So who's more genetically diverse? People will obviously pick the Chinese person and the Swedish person, but in actual fact it's the two Khoisan people. And that was just mind-blowing. It's like, what do you mean? I was already deep in, so this happened just the other day. I wasn't going to take another unbeaten path and look at this. So I'll link it in the show notes. If I find something more, I'll definitely get back into that with you guys. So these Khoi and San, when you look at South Africa, where did they primarily live and roam? They lived in the Northern Cape, the Eastern Cape, parts of Namibia and Botswana. The San were mostly nomadic people, and they lived in small groups moving with the seasons, which I spoke about earlier. They have incredible rock art which still remains in caves and shelters, and I'll put them up here, some of them from the Drakensberg. Just stunning. This was offering insight into their world views, their spirituality and their everyday life. You see this a lot with communities throughout history all over the world where they document their lives on caves. Like the Khoi were with their livestock, and their trade networks occupied more permanent spots, which were usually around the coast and river areas. Then what was happening inland? About 1,500 to 2,000 years ago, there was a significant movement of people. These agro-pastoral farmers came and migrated to southern Africa and changed the cultural map. These people were farmers, metal workers, and herders, and they migrated southward from West and Central Africa. In waves, they brought iron tools, domesticated crops and animals, and new social and political structures. They grew sorghum, millet, and later maize after contact with the Portuguese. They developed iron melting centers because they had tools, which means they knew how to make them, tools, weapons, and trade them. And they built settlements with defensive stone walls like those seen in Zimbabwe and the Limpopo Valley. These communities interacted with, sometimes displaced, and absorb the indigenous San and Khoi. The reason I'm mentioning these tribal communities, as we're going to go through them now, they are very important when we see the impact to them when it came to race classification and when it was rolled out in apartheid South Africa. So I don't want to discount that connection to the colored culture and come back to it later. These migrants spread across the region, settling in areas with access to water, fertile soil, and grazing land for their animals, and were able to grow their crops. Okay. So over time, these distinct tribal identities emerged. So they kind of broke up because of leadership, language, and geography. So people moved away and they kind of built their own tribes as they moved. And this started what we see today in South Africa, which is this amazing tapestry of people and diversity and how different they are. But it's just amazing that this is where it started. These are the major groupings. We have Zulu being the biggest tribal group. It says ethnic group. I don't know if I like that word. There's so many words people use I don't like. But okay, so they're the largest group in South Africa. They're primarily in KwaZulu-Natal. They are known for their oral traditions, beadwork, and warrior heritage as seen by Shaka Zulu. Then we have the Xhosa. Oh, my click is so bad. Sorry, people. Which is the second largest group, mainly in the Eastern Cape, where I'm from. They are known for their initiation rituals and rites, storytelling, and the click of the language, which I just failed to do now, so sorry. Then we have Tswana, which is mostly in the Northwest Province. They share cultural ties with the Botswana people, which you'll see a lot of as you move up in South Africa. They were organized into clans and had strong traditions of community councils. Then we have the Sotho. There's the southern and the northern Sotho. They are found in the Free State, Limpopo, and Lesotho. They are known for their blankets, ponies, and mountainous heritage. We have the Venda, located in the northern Limpopo, deeply spiritual and sacred lakes, known for drumming, dancing, and the Bavenda kingship. Kingdomship. Is it kingship or kingdomship? Okay, you know what I mean. Then we have Tsonga. The Tsonga are settled in the Limpopo and in Mpumalanga. They cross border links with Mozambique. They're renowned for their vibrant music, rituals, and unique blend of local and Portuguese influence. Then we have Ndebele, which is found in Mpumalanga and parts of Gauteng. They are famous for their brightly painted houses, geometric patterns, and beadwork. Historically, they were part of the Zulus, but then broke away from Shaka Zulu himself. I wonder what happened there. Oh, I do know what happened there. But I'm not going to pronounce that person's name now. No, I've already done my bad pronunciation. Now that we've established those communities where everybody was essentially situated throughout South Africa, we then had trade. Trade was the lifeblood of the society, and it happened in two ways. There was local and regional, which is, think of barter markets where people would trade. Ostrich eggshells, beads from the sand would be swapped for tools, animal hides, meat from the khoi. Okay. Then there was the big league, which was the Indian Ocean Trade Network. By at least the 10th century, goods from deep within Africa were making its way through the Swahili port cities. From there, they sailed on Arab sailing vessels to India, Persia, and even China. What were they trading? You had gold from the Limpopo and Zimbabwe plateau. You had ivory and animal hides. And what did they get in return? They got glass beads from India and the Middle East, Chinese porcelain, cotton, cloth, and metal goods. All this trade needed infrastructure to transport the goods to and from the trading posts and the ports. When people talk about infrastructure today, we're thinking about the infrastructure that we see around us today. But in pre-industrial Africa's context, it wasn't roads and railways, but rather trade routes, water management systems, and built environments that facilitated this exchange. There were footpaths and cattle tracks linking farms with these crossings. Some of these routes followed the Limpopo and the Zambezi River using canoes where possible, and on the coast they used the Arab sailing vessels to connect them to the entire ocean of trade. In the interior, there was a hub in Mapungubwe Kingdom in the Limpopo Valley, where elite leaders controlled the gold and ivory routes. Archaeologists have found intricate stone structures there and treasures like the golden rhinoceros. So sidebar, because I couldn't let golden rhinoceros go. The golden rhinoceros of Mapungubwe is a defining symbol of pre-colonial civilization in southern Africa. So it has been described as South Africa's Tutankhamun's mask. Yeah. Which is super interesting. And this is the first time I heard of it. Just saying. So where is Mapungubwe? Mapungubwe is in the far north on the border, bordering the present-day Botswana and Zimbabwe. It was the biggest kingdom on the subcontinent in the 13th century. Okay, very interesting. It had a sophisticated state and economic system that included agriculture, mining, and advanced artisanship. And they traded gold and ivory with Asia and Egypt. Look at you guys doing the things, huh? This site was rediscovered in 1932 by the University of Pretoria, and then they started excavating it, yielding a vast quantity of gold jewelry, including anklet bracelets, necklaces, beads, and animal figurines from 3 elite burial sites. I mean, imagine being the person that found that the first time. Don't you feel like a superhero? Yeah, that must have been so interesting. At the time, and I stand to be corrected, the University of Pretoria decided to hide and not publish their findings because of the political situation in South Africa. And when the political climate changed and got better, then they put it out into the world. That was very interesting. I didn't dig deep on that one, so please correct me if I'm wrong. They do have on display right now in Mapungubwe this golden rhinoceros, this bowl, and the spectre. The gold necklace didn't get mentioned, and it is absolutely beautiful, as you can see. They came from those burial sites in Mapungubwe that I spoke about earlier. In 2003, Mapungubwe was declared a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. Shoo! That was some side story, eh? It was very interesting. I was like, how beautiful is this stuff? I just found it hard to share. Okay. So coming back onto the main path where we were speaking about infrastructure. We had further north, we had the great Zimbabwe, who rose between the 11th and 15th century. I spoke about the stone walls, the grain storages, and a thriving artisan class. I always find talking, as I was doing this research and I started looking at this specifically, that creative aspect that just bleeds through Africa and it runs in our blood. I am the least creative person in my family, which is when I say mom, my dad, and my sister. My mom is very creative. But it's just part of us. And it's something so beautiful to every time when you're talking about a people or about a time, that it always mentions an artisan or something that was made that people were renowned for, beads, and that creative aspect of our people. It's just so interesting when I was going through this. That Zimbabwe area wasn't a village or a rural village. It wasn't small. It really was an urban powerhouse. So it was the beating heart of gold and ivory empire. We had water systems, which is the irrigation in the Limpopo and Zambezi valleys. Terracing of hillsides. I know if you see people growing crops, they kind of do that. And grazing rotations to keep pastures alive. There was quite an amazing system, understanding the land, this creativity, and from the making of tools, there was trade happening. These routes to and from farms, to and from holdings where the guys were coming from, so they could do this trade. And yeah, it's just awesome that all of these things were in place. Then by the 15th century, we had the Portuguese come in. They sailed down the east coast of Africa, building forts and trading posts, trying to wrestle the gold and ivory away from the Swahili merchants. They did bring new crops and maize from the Americas. So by the time the Dutch came in 1652, they were stepping into a region that over 5 centuries of established trade system, trade networks, ballistic system, environmental management, water management, that stretched from southern Africa into Africa and then out into the world. And that brings us to the end of today's episode. I hope you enjoyed learning about the original inhabitants, the people who moved here and just came into the land and made it this beautiful tapestry of people, the trade that was here, the infrastructure that was here, and how exchange of goods and what people were exchanging, and just really again speaking about that special skills with regards to art and creativity that existed and was traded in the country, locally, regionally, into Africa and out into the world. This is our starting point. Next week, I will be looking at a pivotal figure, Kritoa and Angela van Bengali. I don't know if I need to split those two up. I might. But they were pivotal in this time period from 1652. Please join me for that episode, especially Greta. It was very interesting doing that research, and lots of dates that were floating everywhere. My brain was like, hey, wait, just settle on a date. So we're going to go with around next week, okay? I always want to exit the episode with a quote, but for this series, I decided to look for African proverbs, and I found some great ones. So today's one is, to do good is to do evil. Meaning, sometimes a good deed turns into an evil one. When you do good, try to predict the long-term consequences of your deeds. Thanks again for watching, making it all the way to the end. Remember to subscribe to the channel on YouTube, and see you guys next week. Bye!